Welcome to Metrology lecture series. In the present video, we will discuss the measurement of surface finish. Surface finish or surface texture tells us how smooth or roughness a surface. The methods used to measure surface finish are mainly divided into the two groups. First one is the inspection by comparison and another one is the direct instrument measurement. In the inspection by comparison method, surface is compared with the standard samples, and if the test surface looks or feels similar to a standard sample, its roughness value is estimated accordingly. In the direct instrument method, special instruments are using to measure the surface roughness of a surface. These instruments directly measure the surface irregularities and give the numerical values such as the RA or the RMS. So in the comparison method, compare the surface roughness of a surface with a standard sample, and in the instrument method we are measuring the surface roughness of the surface by using a device and get a exact value. Let's see the first method, inspection by the comparison. So the name only indicating comparison methods, the roughness is checked by observing and comparing the test surface with a standard surface whose surface roughness values is already known. So in the comparison method, workpiece surface has to be compared with a standard surface. The surface roughness of the component is compared with a reference specimen that was produced using a similar machining process and has a known roughness value. So these methods are mainly qualitative methods, means so these methods gives only a general idea of the surface finish, not an exact numerical value. So let's see the advantages of the inspection by comparison. So these methods are the simple and quick method. So there is no complex instruments are the required. But similarly, this method having also limitations. So one is the results may not be very accurate. If the comparison is not done with a surface produced by a similar machining process, the results may be misleading. So in the comparison method, we have to compare the surface of the workpiece with the similar machining process. So these are the advantages and limitations. Let's see the various comparison methods. First one is the visual inspection. In the visual inspection, checking the surface by looking at it with the naked eye or with magnification. Second one is the touch inspection. In the touch inspection, feeling the surface with the fingers or a stylus to sense the surface roughness. Third one is the scratch inspection. In the scratch inspection, observing the scratch marks produced on the surface. Next, fourth method is the microscopic inspection. Using a microscope to examine the surface irregularities. Fifth one is the surface photographs. In the surface photographs method, studying the magnified photographs of the surface. So next, sixth one is the micro interferometer. So in the micro interferometer, using optical interference to study the surface texture. Next, seventh method is the Wallace surface dynamometer. So this method is the using instrument to compare the surface finish. And last one is the reflected light intensity method. In this method, measuring the intensity of light reflected from the surface. So first we have to discuss about the visual inspection method. So visual inspection is the simplest method to check the surface roughness. In this method, surface is examined with the naked eye without using any measuring instrument. So however, this method may give incorrect or misleading result, especially when the surface has very smooth or high quality finish. So small surface irregularities cannot be clearly seen by the human eye. So therefore, visual inspection method is mainly used only for rough surfaces where the surface irregularities are large enough to be easily visible. So second method is the touch inspection. Touch inspection is a simple method used to compare the roughness of a surface by feeling the surface with the fingertip. In this method, finger is moved slowly along the surface at a speed of 25 mm per second by touching the surface. The inspector can feel the surface irregularities. So this method helps to compare whether the surface is rougher or smoother. However, it cannot be give exact numerical value of the surface roughness, and in this method very small defects or minor flaws cannot be easily detected. So in this method, human finger can detect the surface irregularities as small as 0.0125 mm. So next method is the scratch inspection. In the scratch inspection, a soft material such as the lead, babbitt or plastic is rubbed over the surface to be tested. So the hard surface irregularities scratch the soft material. Then these scratches are create an impression of the surface profile on the soft material. Then you have to observe the soft material by examining these scratch marks. Then we can be judge the surface roughness. Next method is the microscopic inspection. Microscopic inspection is one of the best method to examine the surface roughness by comparison. In this method, microscope is used to observe the surface closely. Since the microscope can view only a small portion of the surface at a time, and several observations must be taken at different places to find the average surface condition. In this method, a master finished surface is placed under the microscope and compared with the surface that is being inspected. So another way is to place a straight edge on the surface and shine a beam of the light at a 60 degrees to the surface. Then the light creates shadows in the grooves and scratches, which makes the irregularities appear larger. So these magnified shadows helps in studying the surface roughness and defects more clearly. Next method is the surface photograph method. In the surface photograph method, magnified photographs of the surface are taken using special lighting to observe the surface irregularities. So in this method, different types of lightings are used to clearly show the scratches and defects on the surface. So when the vertical lighting is used for the scratches and irregularities appears as dark spots, and smooth or flat areas are appears as the bright spots. Similarly, when the oblique lighting is used, then the effects become opposite. Irregularities appears bright and flat areas are appears as the darker. So next we have to discuss the another method, micro interferometer method. This method is used to measure very small surface irregularities using light interference. So this method uses light patterns to detect and measure the very teeny surface defects. So let's see the working principle. So first we have to optical flat is placed on the surface to be inspected. Next, surface is lighted with monochromatic light. So next, due to the small gap between the optical flat and the surface, interference bands are produced. Then these interference bands are observed using a microscope. So if the surface is perfectly smooth, then interference bands appears straight and uniform. If there are scratches or defects, the bands become distorted or curved, and the scratches appear as interference lines extending from the dark bands into the bright bands. So the measurement is the depth of the defects is calculated by measuring the shift in the interference bands, and the depth is expressed as a fraction of the spacing between the interference fringes. So next method is the Wallace surface dynamometer. The Wallace surface dynamometer is an instrument used to measure the surface texture based on friction. So it works similar to a friction meter. So let's see the construction of this Wallace surface dynamometer. It contains a pendulum, and at the end of the pendulum, testing shoes are attached. These shoes are touch the surface being tested, and a spring mechanism is used to apply a known pressure between the shoes and the surface. So let's see the working principle. Pendulum is lifted to an initial position, then it is released to swing over the surface. While the swinging, testing shoes are rubbed against the surface and producing the friction. Then I have to observe if the surface is smooth, the friction is less, so the pendulum swings for a longer time. If the surface is rough, then friction is more, so the pendulum stops very quickly. So final conclusion of this method is time taken for the pendulum to stop swinging is used to determine the surface texture. Next we will discuss the another method, reflected light. Reflected light intensity method is used to measure the surface roughness by observing how light is reflected from a surface. Let's see the working principle. A beam of light with known intensity is directed onto the surface to be tested. Then when the light strikes the surface, it is reflected in different directions. Then the intensity of the reflected light in different direction is measured using a photo cell. Next we have to observe if the surface is smooth, then most of the light is reflected in one direction, giving the high intensity in that direction. If the surface is rough, then light is scattered in many directions, resulting in lower intensity in any single direction. So the measurement is the measured light intensity values are compared with calibrated values obtained from the surfaces of known surface. Using this comparison, the roughness of the test surface is determined. Next we will be discuss the another measurement method, that is the direct instrument method. In the direct instrument method is a quantitative method used to measure the surface roughness. So in this method, the exact numerical value of the surface finish is obtained using special measuring instruments. So let's see the working principle. So I have to observe the given schematic picture. So the working principle is a stylus which has to be moves across the surface to be tested. Then stylus travels over the peaks and valleys of the surface finish. So it will be moves the up and down. Then these small movements of the stylus, these up and down movements of the stylus are converted into the electrical signals. So these electrical signal produced very small, so it is amplified using an amplifier. Then amplified signal is then sent into a recording or indicating device. So instrument displays or records the numerical value of the surface roughness, such as the in the terms of the RA or RZ. So RA means average roughness, or maybe the maximum height of the roughness. So a stylus probe moves over the surface, which has to be converts the surface irregularities into the electrical signals, and the instrument displays the surface roughness value numerically. So next we have to see the stylus probe type of the surface texture measuring instruments. So let's discuss the principle. So when a sharp stylus moves across the surface of a workpiece, it moves up and down due to the peaks and valleys of the surface irregularities. These vertical movements are measured and used to determine the surface finish of the workpiece. So let's see the construction of this method. So a sharp stylus or probe, and next a mechanism which has to be move the stylus across the surface, and next a transducer which has to be the convert the stylus movement into the electrical signals, and it is consisting of an amplifier to increase the signal strength, and also it is consisting the display or recording unit to show the surface roughness value. So operation is stylus is placed on the surface of the workpiece, then it will be moved slowly across the surface. Next, then due to these surface irregularities, stylus moves the vertically, which means up and down. So these vertical movements, up and down movements, are converted into electrical signal by the transducer. The signals are amplified and displayed on the screen or recording device as a surface roughness value. So let's see the advantages. The main advantage of the stylus type instruments is electrical signal obtained from the stylus movement can be processed easily. This allows the instrument used to calculate the different surface roughness parameters and display or record from the later analysis. Because of these features, stylus type instruments are widely used for the measuring the surface texture. So similarly, it is having some disadvantages. One is the bulky and complex. So these instruments are large and have complicated mechanisms, and the fragile. So these instruments are especially the stylus, so it can be easily damaged. Next one is the high initial cost. So these equipments are the expensive compared to the similar inspection methods. And one more limitation is the limited measurement area. So measurements can be taken only over a small section of the surface at a time, and while measuring the surface roughness by using this method, it requires the skilled operators, which has to be proper operation and the interpretation of the results need a trained persons. And another one, the limitation is possibility of the measurement errors. The distance between the stylus and the skid and the shape of the skid can be cause the errors, especially when the measuring of the wavy surfaces. So let's see the examples of the stylus probe instruments. First one is the profilometer. So second one is the Tomlinson Surface meter. Third one is the Taylor-Hobson Tally Surf. So fourth one is the Sigma Micro Test, and fifth one is the Robert Macrin Roughness indicator. So first I have to discuss about the profilometer. A profilometer is a compact instrument used to measure the surface texture or surface roughness directly. So this roughness value is usually measured in the microns. So the profilometer working principle is the similar to the gramophone pickup. So let's see the picture and observe the main parts of the profilometer. So profilometer consists of the stylus, it called as the tracer. Second one is the amplifier or the electrical pickup, and third one is the indicating or recording unit. Let's see the working principle of the profilometer. A very fine pointed stylus is kept in contact with the surface of the workpiece. Then stylus moves across the surface and it moves up and down because of the surface irregularities such as the peaks and valleys. Then stylus is connected to an electrical pickup. So which is the stylus moves vertically, the coil also moves in the magnetic field and produces a small electrical voltage. This electrical signal is amplified and sent to an indicating unit or recording unit which shows the surface roughness value. The stylus movement across the surface can be done manually or automatically using a motorized mechanism. So let's see the features of the profilometer. So it can be measure the surface roughness accurately, and it can also detect the waviness and other surface defects, and it can provide a quick and simple method for initial inspection of the surface quality before the performing the detailed analysis. So profilometer is especially used for the measuring the surface finish of the deep holes or maybe deep bores, so where other inspection methods are the difficult. So this is the regarding the surface roughness measurement by the direct comparison method and the with the profilometer. Thank you.